Hello everyone. Second Entrepreneur webinar with Serial Entrepreneur by Entrepreneur Network. Entrepreneur Network is a platform that to connect entrepreneur with entrepreneur, inspiring entrepreneur with entrepreneur, and help and bring ideas and projects into next level. So all these are exclusively for EMA members only. So please join Entrepreneur Network and also join our LinkedIn group as well to get to know other members professionally. So let's see. So this is the link that you can join Entrepreneur Networks and the LinkedIn group. So I'm Lex. I'm a startup founder and the founder of Entrepreneur Network. Thanks to everyone that participating in this webinar. So today I'm so excited to welcome Victor. Are you ready to get this webinar started, Victor?
Yeah, absolutely. Everybody.
Okay. So Victor is an EM alumni and a serial entrepreneur with curious mind and broad spectrum of interest. Up to date, he has co-founded 10 companies in the various industries. So, okay. So Victor, could you give us a little bit insight about you and tell us about yourself personally and overview about your businesses?
Well, personally, I don't know, the most personal thing that I can share basically is that I'm a little bit maybe too curious for my own good as well, which has led me to study a lot of things, do a lot of things, work a lot of things, and start up several companies, which maybe later on I would probably advise people not to necessarily do. But other than that, I'm Bulgarian by origin. I've had the luck to travel the world. I lived and studied and worked in over 12 countries in the last 10 years. Currently, I'm based out of Singapore, and I've very recently started a family here. That's, regarding my businesses, my key focus right now is on Newstag in particular, which is one of the companies listed here, and as board member for Becto, I still have a number of responsibilities, sometimes representing the company as well, and the SOX, which is one of my kind of hobby companies, in the sense I created it with a group of friends in order to try and learn first and foremost, and then test a couple of ideas that I had, and then it actually became a thing. So now we're still working a little bit on optimizing it, but it's another interesting company. And yeah, before we go into any depth with questions, I just want to say that also that today is a very nice day because we just launched the private beta for Newstag, which is a video news syndication and distribution company, and we have the first 20 people testing around. So if you're interested in seeing what this is about, you can register on newstag.com for next cohorts of test users. But what I can tell you for now, it's a Spotify for video news.
Okay. Okay. But Victor, maybe you could try to mention a bit details about one of your company. Yeah, that you can choose one of them that you want to. Yeah.
Well, for now, maybe one of the more interesting things is really Newstag. It's something that I'm a co-founder of, so I'm not the core entrepreneur and holder of the vision, but it's something in which I bought in as a vision due to the fact that it has the grand potential to really make an effect, change the way we do a certain thing, and in particular, that's how we consume news. Since I assume most of you're quite used to technology and patterns by which you're used to looking at and looking for news have changed very radically. In particular, we looked at the video news segment and we said, okay, this is not necessarily working. A lot of the digital assets of news publishers are not well monetized. A lot of the advertising actually ends up being associated to clips that are not necessarily brand friendly or even brand relevant. and a lot of the users and consumers of news are not necessarily satisfied because in the end the search cost is quite high. So if we want, so usually every person that's quite curious has consumption patterns that are not necessarily linear. So we don't go to one place for news and we don't look at one type of news. So what we've tried to do is we've tried to reflect that and enable users to actually find one place for all they're looking for, and the news that they are exposed to are not necessarily editorialized and ranked based on someone's agenda and priority. They're actually ranked and structured around your dynamic preferences as they evolve over time. So that's the short note around it. Now I'm currently engaged with both managing the product development for the company, as well as rolling out the business and operations in Asia, Southeast Asia in particular.
Wow, really good. Then, so this is the latest company that you are very active in this. Newstag is one of the companies that you are very active right now.
Yeah, this is my latest baby.
Okay. So what about the first business that you ever did? So tell us about how you started your first business and how was it?
Well, if I have to be quite honest, the first company that I started was actually a consultancy company in 2008, and that didn't do quite well. The second one was Obecto, and it's still around and it's functioning great and has a lot of fantastic people. But the first business that I started, um, it wasn't really very proper and it wasn't really very legal. Um, so the the long story short, I was a gamer when I was a kid, and I like to do a lot of things. And one of the things that I like to do is I like to play games with my friends, and we used to do night sessions in the local internet cafes, and spend the whole night playing games. And one of the things that I really wanted is actually, especially the friends living in my block, I wanted to kind of share this experience with them. So I started hooking people up and basically created a LAN network for them. And the first idea that I got, okay, I mean, this thing needs internet. I mean, we were operating still on modems and dial-ups, and it was terrible. So I found another friend of mine who was trying to experiment with something else, and he hooked us up with a company. So we connected a 100 kilobit LAN network for the 10 users that were playing computer games in that little network. And then I said, actually, this could be something. This could be a business. And I started talking around with friends. And one of the friends that I actually talked with was my co-founder, actually the CEO of Obecto. And I told him, hey, look, Toro, I have this idea. I actually wanna connect more people in my neighborhood with the LAN network, because there's no providers operating with us, and at that time the second best thing after a dial-up modem was a cable modem through the internet, through the TV cable companies, and those were expensive and not that fast. So he said, yeah, you know what, I actually think that one of my friends has a couple of antennas. I'll hook you up. And we were, the secret behind this whole thing is we were actually, I was 13 and a half years old and my friend was 14 and a half. So, yeah, so I rented more or less a couple of antennas, parabolic antennas, started pulling cables around, hooked up 20, 30 people, and then it actually became a network. And 1 year later, it was 100 and something people. I was going around pasting brochures, doing my own accounting, hooking up people with cables, managing servers, doing a lot of funny things. And in the end, the Commission for Regulation of Communication came by and said, hey, do you have a license for the network? And I said, I don't think that anybody would allow me. I'm actually 14. So then I figured out that actually there are certain boundaries within which even an entrepreneur has to be confined. So I actually managed to get away with it because I was so young. But it was really my proper first entrepreneurial experience, and it was real fun. I had a lot of fun spending time on roofs of blocks and pulling cables around and signing up people and dealing with internet ping issues.
Okay. Okay. That is a
So that
very,
was the
very
first baby.
unusual. Maybe it's kind of unusual.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
But
yeah, you know about the Wild Wild West. The thing is that in Europe, Eastern Europe around that time was the Wild Wild East in a sense. So a lot of things were possible, and especially if you have a little bit of imagination and you can charm people around, a lot of things were also doable. And being a kid, that was for me like an allowing, kind of like a permission to do a lot of things that were quite obnoxious. And then the first actual business that I started was a consultancy company in Denmark many years later, in 2008, I think, and that didn't go so great. We had several projects, but they weren't necessarily big enough or frequent enough to actually pay for my bills. And in parallel to that, my good friend Todor actually approached me and said, "Hey, you know what? I'm quitting my job. I want to start a software company." That's the same guy that actually hooked me up with the antenna people, and
that's
with
kind of
whom we've
hard to
been
do.
talking about starting. Yeah, it's someone that actually since the age of since a very early age actually we were just around 15, we were talking about doing things together and participating in different competitions. So it was kind of it was the only feasible path in a sense that I saw for my career as well, and it was good that there was someone to kind of share it with. So we started Obecto with him, and this was the first kind of proper company. Later on, what was the consultancy company that I mentioned, which started in Denmark, became Innovator, which is my consultancy company currently, through which I sometimes do curiosity projects and through which I fund some of my other gigs. But yeah, that's the short story about my first entrepreneurial experiences.
Okay. Okay. So so at the beginning you started the first one when you were just a kid, and after that you did it in Denmark, and then Obeto just doing quite well. So, so let's I think all the audience here, they are made up of entrepreneurs, want to be entrepreneurs, and also trying to figure out something that they want to do. So could you tell us what you actually learned from this experiences, like the first one when you was a kid, and then the second one is not going well, and the third one is going a bit better. Yeah, tell us about what lessons that have you learned from these two
So
experiences.
the amount of lessons that I've learned actually is incredible, and one of the things that you figure out, especially running a company, is that as they say, feedback is what you get when you don't get what you want. Um, so I got a lot of feedback throughout the years, and and I'm still getting a lot, and not everything that I do actually gets anywhere. But for example, the first thing that I learned that was reaffirmed with quite a major project actually that we did with someone that later on became a mentor and friend of mine. So with the internet company, what I learned the most is that it's better to apologize than to ask for permission. And as I said, I reaffirmed that afterwards with another project, which was big um, push to build a global talent network that had automated matching solutions and a lot of things. And then this was the first time when I actually managed to formulate in words what I learned in that experience before. That's why I'm connecting the two experiences. But to analyze it a little bit, a lot of times people approach things from the perspective of what are the rules of the system, how the system operates, and how can I beat the system by operating within it. And what I learned is that as an entrepreneur, if you want to be better at playing the rules, you either have to have a very big brain or a very big bank account. And I don't think I'm the smartest person around. I'm definitely not the richest person around. So the other alternative as an entrepreneur is basically to break some rules. And those rules don't need to be rules that get you to jail in a sense, but just they could be cultural rules. They could be presumptions, ways of doing things. And to be honest, starting up internet service provider at the age of 13 and a half, 14 years old wasn't exactly something that I planned for. It wasn't exactly something that people around me were thinking that it's a good idea. Actually, everybody was making fun of me. And it was a fantastic experience. And the only reason why it succeeded is because at no point did I ask anybody if I have the permission to do it, and I did not necessarily ask myself, what if it fails? Because I just thought about how can it not fail? How can it be done? So that's why I think it's most of the time it's better to go for it, do it, and if it breaks, it breaks. Then you can apologize. But asking for permission is not necessarily a good idea. And that includes also my parents, who were heavily disapproving of my doings while I was in school, running an internet service provider company.
Okay, so Victor, so basically it's that what you want to say is like try to do it, then idea, just try to do it, don't care that much, right?
Yeah, it's not about don't care that much. Of course you should care. Of course, you should not hurt people around you and break the laws of physics or the society we live in entirely. But don't think about what could stop you. Think about what can be done in order for you to get there. So that was the first lesson in a sense. Then with the consultancy company, it was quite fun because we started off with with a relatively simple vision. It was me and a friend of mine in Denmark, and we wanted to. I had a pretty strong network in Bulgaria at that time. He had a pretty strong network in Denmark, and we said, okay, what we can do is basically try to hook up and do some matchmaking between the business in Scandinavia and the Balkans. And actually, the company was called Balkan Business Advisors. And it was really, really interesting because we set it up. We started off actually with a website and registered the company first, and did a lot of things and started sending proposals around and contacting people and networking, and in the end it was 2-3 months before we got anything going. So what I figured then is that, yeah, you can plan it, you can design it, you can make your website and announce yourself, register your company, but that doesn't mean you actually have a business. So the thing that I took out from there was that before, especially in the services sector, I think, before I sell anything, I should probably not do any of the admin. The website didn't matter, the setup of the business didn't matter. The only thing that mattered was the fact that actually we were supposed to be selling. So yeah, that's another thing that I would recommend as a learning lesson. It took a while. It took a lot of hustling, a lot of calls, a lot of meetings, and we thought we had a much better idea on how things can be done. But also sometimes you can't teach. You can't, as my wife says, you can't straighten bananas. Which means that from a consultancy perspective, I went in and I said, you should be doing things this way, and this is how you should be entering this market, and you should be thinking about this in these terms, and people wouldn't care. And the only thing that worked was when we managed to plug ourselves more or less in the mental framework of the clients, and that's when we actually started getting some business out. And then the third thing was Obecto. And Obecto was a very interesting story because it was a company that was designed and imagined and then executed while I was on a distance from it. I had a lot of input and a lot of effect into its structure, plan, strategy, etc. But the person behind it genuinely was Todor, who was the main founder and the CEO from the very beginning. And it's so the approach towards the company was very hygienic in a sense in the beginning, and we tried a lot of things. We tried with promoting ourselves as a company that does clean code, and we have the right procedures and we have the right processes, etc., etc. And little by little, I think when we grew up, we started figuring out that what matters is that you deliver within certain frames that are important for the clients in this particular sense. It doesn't matter if you have clean code or have the best software practices or the best architectural approach. So I know that that's not very relevant maybe to your question. And the way that I would relate it is actually again back to the thing that sometimes you think that something's right, but it doesn't necessarily have the product market fit. And as a company, your first thing to focus on is actually discovering that product market fit. So it was a similar learning experience than the consultancy company, because also it's a service business. So maybe I didn't learn as fast from the consultancy company and transfer it as good to Vector in the beginning. But what we figured out is basically in the first couple of years that a lot of people come in, they think that they buy into that vision that you do things right. But in the end, what they care more about is that what they want is done fast and within certain frames that they imagine it. So you need to deliver with a quick turnaround.
Yeah, I agree with that. For example, it's Facebook. Before Facebook, it's just a dating website, but right now, it's a social media website. So they understand the customer and they change it, they pivot it, and then
that's the point of iteration.
Yeah. So that's
the point of iteration. But as a team, in a sense, it's really tricky because you listen to like Lean Startup and you listen to many people talk to you about entrepreneurship, and I've read a lot of the books and I've seen a lot of the videos and etc. And people tell you, be lean, be iterative, do things in this way, do things in that way. And then you look at a lot of the successful entrepreneurs that you can see. Most of them are actually quite big assholes, and they've been very harsh and they've been very linear in a sense. So they've been very focused on delivering one thing, and there is for me it's very interesting, because where is the line between being very rigid and very focused on your vision and basically not compromising, not letting people tell you what you should do and how you should do it, and listening to people for feedback and reacting to the market and being iterative. So what I'm trying to say is that we went, at least within the Obecto and BBA at that time, now Innovator, went between being overly reactive and being not reactive at all to what people were saying, and it's a search for that medium as an experience, I guess.
Okay, I agree with that. Yeah, you just have to do it in the way that you are most suitable of. I think.
Yeah, in the way that makes you happy, I guess.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. Just a reminder that for the audience. Oh yeah. Just a reminder for the audience. Please feel free to leave any questions in the chat box anytime when you have one. Yeah. So yeah, as David also point out some questions. So we will go through the question when it is at the right time. So yeah, Victor, do you have anything you want to add before we go through the question?
I mean, yeah, one of the biggest things that I've actually gained to experience, because first, one of the biggest mistakes that I've actually made, or two of the biggest mistakes that I've actually made. The first biggest mistake that I've actually made is that focus was not necessarily my biggest priority. And at some point you need to know where your time goes and what's its output. So what focus for me means is basically optimizing the kind of return on investment formula. So your time should go where there is most return. And return is not necessarily monetary return, which leads me to the second thing that I wanted to say is that it's very difficult as an entrepreneur to say focus on what makes you happy, but this is what I really think everybody should do. It doesn't matter entrepreneur or working in a bank or working in a consultancy or an industry, whatever, because the first few years, maybe, what I focused on was actually delivering results. So, pardon my French, I had my head up my ass, and I was really focused on satisfying the clients, getting the companies right, being afraid and shocked and stressed about everything that was going on, being continuously and completely in control, having full information of everything, and things weren't moving as fast as I wanted them. Even though I was making good points, people weren't necessarily listening to them. Because I think that I didn't have the right vibe, and also it's hard to listen to someone who looks exhausted and is not necessarily feeling great. Once I actually started focusing around doing the things that I like, doing the things that make me happy, and that doesn't mean that everything that you do in a business should be something you like. But if a business is making you feel miserable, it's probably not the right business you should be doing as an entrepreneur or as an employee of it as well. So I started running away from the things that made me miserable and focusing on the things that made me happy, and actually things started moving a little bit faster than before. And that's another piece of advice that I wanted to leave to the audience.
Okay. So first, focus, and then second, work on the things that you're passionate about. So this is
on the things that you can love and not the things that make you miserable.
okay. So let's go through the question from audience. So one question from Maxim. What do you think minimum requirements to start a company, Victor?
Wow, I would really need a little bit of input to that question. Minimum requirements in terms of what? Because if it's capital requirements, depends on the company. If it's knowledge requirements, as long as you can. People. Okay, people. Well, one at least. One of the things that I figured out is that it's a personal thing. So, for example, I really don't like doing things alone. If I had to start a company by myself, I wouldn't feel as happy. I'm running the consultancy company by myself, but the consultancy company is focusing on occasionally delivering projects that I'm really passionate about that come by my way. Everything else that I've started with other people as well. And this is how I feel better the best. A, because I can get feedback around. So people can actually confront me. They can tell me if I am, on the right path or not. And B, because you can supplement your skills. But minimal requirement, I don't think so. So if you feel good with yourself, go with yourself. If your company needs more skills, get the skills on board in terms of people.
Okay. Good. And then she also asked another question. So can you please tell more about your experiences of starting a company, like from idea to registration to so on? And because you don't know anything, she wants to know about it. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, my experiences have varied, and as I said, I've done I've done the not registering a company at all type of experience. I've also done the registering a company and then sitting down and waiting and worrying about how the hell am I going to actually make some business out of it. And I've also more recently started figuring out that actually the first thing that you need to do, you need to validate that what you are planning to deliver to the market makes sense and makes sense in terms of that someone cares about it. So before you do that, don't register a company, don't register a website, don't put any effort. I know it's become like more or less a very pop culture thing, the lean startup methodology, but it has some pretty good points, and one of them really is validate your business first, then go and do the admin stuff and the rest. Also because it's expensive to open and close down companies without anything, and you feel pressure to do things that you shouldn't be doing. Also, if you create a structure without knowing that that structure would work.
Okay, yeah. From my experience, right, I think first you should start as a side project, like a part-time or in a weekend project, so you can try to validate, try to plan it out, try to find some team. Then after that, once you think that it is good, that there's a lot of supporters, then you can start to think about it more seriously, and then maybe you register a company or maybe quit your job. But before you quit your job, before you put a lot of effort on that one, you should really like validate, like what Victor said, validate and work around first, and then once you think that it's secure, then you do it. Yeah, and of course you need to get more feedback, so that you can validate your idea.
But also one thing that you need to figure out is actually you can get feedback from your friends. Actually, the best people around that you want to have is probably your enemies in this context, because many times when I've went around with an idea for a product or something that I wanted to do, I go and I say, hey, Mom, that's a bad example. I haven't actually done that, but hey, my friends, what do you think of this? They say, oh, this is really cool, Why? Because your friends don't want to hurt you. And you want people that are going to tell you this is shit because A, B, C, D, and etc. And this is really important. You don't want feedback on thumbs up, on thumbs down. You want feedback on why would people buy this? What do they like? What do they not like? How they will buy it? Like the first question you need to answer is actually, what do I need to do for you to actually give me money for what I'm planning to do? Or if it's a service that requires usage and subscription, which is basically doesn't have a business model from the very start, what can I do in order for you to use my product?
Yeah.
So you really need to get that answered, and oftentimes you cannot get that answered from your closest friends because a lot of the closest friends wouldn't want to hurt you, wouldn't want to discourage you.
You want a very honest feedback. You don't want to like a live feedback or something that just want to compliment you. You want a real honest feedback, and when you get a real feedback, then you can validate. And the feedback is honest and it is good, and they want to pay you to do it, then that's the point that you have to think seriously.
Actually, one example with the socks is actually a very fun project for me because first of all, it's the first physical product that I'm playing with. The second thing is that it was my path to learn about e-commerce. Actually, the history behind this project is that I started it after I was talking with a friend of mine about a consultancy project, which was very promising. And I really wanted to jump on board on that project and be part of it. And I had no e-commerce experience, and that was actually one of the things that was deterring me. And then I figured, oh, holy, I've been doing things for a while. I have focused on a certain aspect, on a certain industry, but when it comes to digital strategy, digital product development, I cannot do e-commerce, and that's a big gap. So I need to find a way to learn about it, and I'm not going to get a job in a company to do it because I have all the other things that I'm running. I should start a company, learn about it through that. And gosh, that was an interesting experience when it comes to learning. So one of the learnings that happened actually quite recently was that we relaunched the business, and I was gathering feedback from many people, and the first iteration of feedback, everybody was like, oh, this is cool, makes sense, I will buy this product, it's the business sells socks subscription, so it's very high quality, great socks in the ranks of Falke and Hugo Boss, but at a slightly lower price on a subscription model. So I started going around my friends again, and I started asking, okay, what do you think of this? Do you think it makes sense? Do you think I should kill it as a project, etc.? And then they were all like, oh yeah, it's a valid use case. I will buy it. It looks nice, and the products look nice. I said, okay, why aren't you buying it then? What's going on? I mean, enough with the logic of this is nice and this is cool because you're doing it. I know that my landing page is not optimal. I know that my shopping cart was confusing at that time. We did several iterations after that and improved certain things. And there are still improvements being made actually on the basis of that feedback. But I know that it's not there. And I know that because I've been looking at the data all the time. So I know that there is still need for improvements, still needs for iteration. So please tell me as a customer what these need to be. Don't tell me that it's nice. So then the conversation actually went on a very different level. And this was the most valuable feedback that I can gather. And actually, the current iterations that we're doing around the product are entirely based around that type of feedback. Because this is the feedback that you want. Actually, you want people to tell you, okay, on the friendly stuff aside, these are the things that are wrong, and these are the reasons why I wouldn't buy, so that you can fix it.
Okay. So so let's go to it. The next question is from Sanari, and Sanari, I think we cover your question. So we go to the next one. David, okay, David. So, his question is, during all your founding or co-founding of companies, how have you found mentors to give you advices? Yeah, Peter.
Well, it so I have had very few mentors so far, and most of the times those ended being people that I worked with or for in any way, shape and form. And one of the things that I found, because in the beginning, let's say in the first years when I was starting up things, I was mostly thinking that, you're such a little precious diamond that someone's going to notice you and notice that you're really struggling in doing something interesting, and they're going to come in and say, hey boy, listen, sit down on my lap and I'll tell you how to do things. This is kind of like the vision I had for mentoring and how it would work out. But this is not what happened. So I actually didn't have any type of mentoring for the first uh, until 2 or 3 years ago, to be honest. And then 2 or 3 years ago, I said, okay, I actually have these gaps in my skill set, in my knowledge, in my experiences. There are things that people that I respect have been able to do, have been able to scale businesses and scale sales in a way that I never managed until that point. So I just went and I asked these people to give me advice. And the moment you put yourself in a position where because I was always very confident, and I came out as confident. When you come out as confident, people say, okay, he knows it all. He thinks he's doing the right things, or I mean, this person doesn't seem like he's going to be someone that would take my advice, so they discard you or don't really necessarily feel like they should give you advice. But when you put yourself in a position where you just honestly say, you know what, I don't understand this. I don't know. For example, the first mentor that I actually had in my life was, as an entrepreneur at least, was someone that I went to and I said, listen, I mean, you managed to build a multi-million-dollar business out of nothing, out of just a vision, without you having any backing, any prior finance or prior history in entrepreneurship, and you're so good at selling, and you convince people that there is value where it's only you who is able to see it, and you manage to sell that. And this is actually part of the entrepreneurship idea. You convince people that there is value somewhere where nobody else sees value. So I asked him, okay, I mean, how did you do it? And then he said, okay, I will try to help you out. But I had to admit that I have the lack of that competence, and that's what that's the advice that I'll give to you. Find someone who you respect. Go to them and say, honestly, I want to do this and that, and be specific about it. And if they would like you, and they like you, they will help you.
But how to find them? I think it's not that easy to find them, right?
Well, if you don't have people that you respect around you, then probably you're with the wrong crowd, to be honest.
Okay.
That's the other kind of rule. I mean, if you're the smartest person in the room, you're probably in the wrong room. I mean, I really like this quote.
Okay.
You need to have people around you that are actually better than you, and you always will. And listen to them, and you know. And if you're not, sorry.
Do you think that if I cold email somebody that I admire, do you think they will accept me?
No, but this is like, I mean, it's probably not a very good idea that you just go to someone, you know, that you found on Skype or LinkedIn and or Facebook or LinkedIn and say, hey, you don't know anything about me, but I would like you to mentor me, because it's just it's not, you don't have any type of relationship before. A few people are gonna do it, but as long as you don't share context, it's going to be more difficult. So, you know, go to the right events, hear the right speakers, network with the right people. Because I'm sorry, but if you're starting a company, if you want to be an entrepreneur and your networking skills are not very good, probably you're going to be the person developing a technology, and you need to find co-founders that are able to commercialize that technology very well, developing the idea. But you're not going to be the lead entrepreneur, because entrepreneurship, to a large extent, I think, is making connections that are, you know, that are complicated. And for me, you know, the best thing that I could advise is, you know, go to the right events, hear the right speakers. If you like them, start a conversation with them around something that they also care about, because it's a little bit about the other. It's actually a lot about the other person as well. So if I come and I start talking to you about something that you don't care, you probably wouldn't, you know, you wouldn't connect with me. You wouldn't want to mentor me about something that you don't care. But if I talk to you about something that you're passionate about and you're known about, then what happens is that you're much more likely to engage in a conversation, because people like to talk about the things they love, and as a result, they would like to give you their knowledge about the things they love. So for me, it's always been, okay, you're good at this, you love this, I would like to listen to you and learn from you.
Okay, so the takeaway is that go to the event, networking, build relationship, and at some point, if you can talk to, you can try to have somebody.
Yeah, an event is one context. I mean, an event is one context. There's of course incubators and etc. That you can visit. There is even in your sales process. I mean, as you go around and meet people and you try to sell to them, and they say, "Hey, no, I wouldn't buy this." You know, if you just need to have a shared context to start with. This is, at least from my experience, this is what I would consider. You need a shared context.
Great.
Cold calling rarely works. One of the things that I hate the most is actually sales through cold calling. And a cold contact is much more likely to be rejected. If you have created a context, then it's much more natural. And the other thing, again, I repeat, make sure you start, you know, what you ask for is something that's actually interesting for the other person as well.
Okay. There's another question from Maxine. And I think, yeah, let's continue with this question, then I will continue with the question that I want to ask. Okay, Maxine asks, how you validate idea if you are afraid to disclose it?
Okay. If you have figured out a way to create cold fusion or quantum processors, well done. Then probably there is a need for your idea either ways, and this is something genius and very patentable. So you should go with that. Most of the times, though, that's not the case. So most of the times, your idea is not something that's extremely unique. Actually, there is many smart people around the world that think about similar things. And if you're really committed to actually testing something and rolling it out, part of the process is also opening up. If you're too secretive about an idea, you will never be able to sell it. So if you want to validate an idea, you don't need to disclose how you actually execute it. You don't need to disclose what stands in the back door, backend, black box, and etc. But when it comes to what you want to sell, I mean, that's what you'll go to the market either ways with. So go and disclose it. You don't need to tell about everything about your idea. You talk about the value proposition only. That's the thing. So for example, let's say you figure out a great recipe for ice cream. Cool. I mean, make that ice cream, go around and give it to people to see if they like it. You don't need to tell them, do you like the recipe for ice cream that's very secretive and has these and these ingredients. So what I'm saying is, if you're afraid to disclose your idea, you will be afraid to sell it, which means that you should probably not do it.
And also there's another great tips by Raj, entrepreneur, hardware entrepreneur, and he also said that there's a kind of say catch-22 startup situation. So you need to take a step at a time, delivering, validating, and iterating. Yeah, people can go to take a look, Google search for catch-22 startup, then you can learn more about it.
And this might be a little bit of a philosophy as well, but I actually figured out something. Business, so you validate ideas step by step, yes, but business grows in quantum leaps, yes. So at least with the things that I've done, you have nothing happening, nothing happening, nothing happening. In the meantime, you iterate, you change things, then you do something right, boom, something big happens. Then nothing happening, or small growth, then you find something else, then you go into exponential, then something else happens. Actually, one thing that I can share is in relation to that is we did the pre-launch for the socks in August. So half of the month of August, actually all the month of August was a pre-launch month, and we launched the pre-launch page. We did some copy there, we did some design, and we did a little viral loop there. And we opened it up and invited our friends, and about 100 people joined, and it died out. We say, okay, I mean that's not very fun. It was like moving slightly, moving, very, very slow. So it wasn't any exponential growth. Then we did a couple of tweaks. We decreased bounce rate a lot, and conversion started improving. We shared, we changed the copy to be a little bit more clear about the motivation. Why should join, and etc. And then suddenly, a couple of, and we submitted a link to Reddit as well. That's the other thing. And then suddenly a couple of deal sites got the link, and then a lot of other sites got the link, and then the whole thing went viral. So after 7 days of nothing happening, we did something right, which kicked us into viral growth, which then went into massive abuse of the site as well, which then caused other problems that we actually had to at some point shut down the pre-launch site in order to introduce security measures because we were attacked by bots. So, it's, yeah, nothing happens, something big happens, you have to deal with it. And the other thing, big growth, big numbers, and no growth, no numbers are almost equally dangerous. Actually, the growth is more dangerous because if things are moving fast, you can break more things than if they're not moving at all. That's, yeah, it's unrelated, but it's another piece of advice that I could say.
Okay. There's another question by Rakesh, but so his question is how to convince and win the customer if you don't without having any experience, much experience. And it is a non-IT sector, and his interest in environmental consultancy. Maybe you can give a short answer to him.
Yeah, the consultancy was tough, to be honest. Without a portfolio and without experience, selling consultancy is possibly one of the hardest things I've ever had to do. It's just, I mean, I had gone to the point where I actually did a lot of free work, just to convince the clients that there is value that I can create for them. And once that happens, though, you need to make sure that you send the right signal and you position things in the right way, that they know that you are not usually doing free work. That you're not a non-profit. You're not a foundation, a cause that does that. You're doing this in order to get portfolio. So after that kind of chasm is crossed, it's much easier if you've done a right job to get references, to get to get into the door with other clients, especially on a high management level. Businesses network a lot with each other. So if you're doing an environmental consultancy, if you do something right for one portfolio client for free, maybe you get the endorsements and the confidence and the case study as well to go to other clients that will do the same thing for you, with you. And you also need to price it right as well. I mean, you need to price it according to some level to your levels and market.
Okay. So let's continue with the questions that I have. So I as entrepreneurs, right? And we always deal with the same thing. So it's like we work so hard, starting from the morning till night, and then at some point we turned out by customer, by investor, and then this situation is so difficult to deal with it. So Victor, could you share with us your philosophy of entrepreneurial journey and how you keep these things balanced?
Yeah, I mean that's what I kind of started with. It's doing what you love, because I still do most of the times, most of the days I still do 14-hour work days. I've incorporated my work in my lifestyle pretty much. I still sometimes work weekends. Now, mostly thanks to my wife, I actually don't work on Sundays usually. So that took some convincing on her side. Um, and of course, some things change in time, and you have to dedicate time to other events in your life. But I guess the short and sweet answer is you are taking a big responsibility starting up a company, especially if you start hiring people. But one of the things that's most important about this responsibility is that for your startup, it's like being a parent, actually. And I can say that now since recently I have a daughter. It's very similar to being a parent, because if you break, if you burn, if you crash, uh, you will kill your startup as well. So for the sake of your startup, for the sake of your child, you should take care of yourself as well. So incorporate your work in your lifestyle, but take care of yourself as well. Go to the gym, go running, eat well, because one of the things that actually, and I can say that from a person who basically nearly killed himself from work, because I had a couple of burnouts, crises, and things like that, and I can, as many entrepreneurs as they hear, for me, the better it is if it affects their life in some good way. You damage yourself and damage the people around you if you are too focused on what you do and your results and your and moving forward. And if you do that, you're not going to be effective in your business, and you're gonna bust it. So a happy manager, a happy business owner is more likely to be more successful with clients, with solving problems, and etc. If you put yourself in a position where you burn out, you put yourself in danger, you put your business in danger as well.
Okay.
So take care of yourselves, entrepreneurs.
Okay. So it is like part of a journey that it is always not easy to become an entrepreneur. You take a lot of courage, you take a lot of responsibility, and also risk.
It doesn't need to be that hard as well. One of the things that I learned is that a lot of the problems that I solved were not necessarily problems that I had to solve. So a lot of times, you run in circles and spend 3 times the energy necessary in order for you to experiment as much as possible and solve as many of the problems as possible. Sometimes it's not necessary. Sometimes, for example, you lay at night at 3 a.m. in the morning after you've finished working just a couple of hours ago, and you're worried and your head is working and it's processing things and etc. And in the end, you're not really effective, and you're just going around in the same circle, chewing up the same ideas. As a matter of fact, I mean, probably all of you know that most of the connections in the brain between neurons, they happen while you sleep. So sleep is actually quite important. If you live sleep deprived as an entrepreneur, how are you going to come up with good ideas, and how are you going to solve problems? How are you going to inspire people, and how are you going to inspire clients and sell to them? So yeah, I mean, I guess what I figured out for myself, and I've been there, I've done that mistakes. I've actually had periods where I've physically not been feeling well because of overcommitting to my work, and once I got out of it, actually things started working much better. And the way that I did that is I focused on the things that I actually make the most difference in. So, again, return on investment. Invest your time where it returns the most value.
Okay. So let's think think back into the past. So Victor, what was holding you back from becoming an entrepreneur in the past?
Well, yeah, in which past it depends. I mean, as I said, I
I
started
mean,
very early. Then I did a
in
bunch of other things in between.
may- maybe at the point that you have other responsibility and and you want to become an entrepreneur, but then something's boring in your mind.
But it's
What was
different
that?
for different people. For me, for example, I've always done too many things at the same time, and it's just been like that. I mean, when I had a proper job, the last proper job was in a consultancy. But before that, actually, I worked in a bank. I worked in Citibank actually, and while I was doing that, I was also deputy vice president of an NGO, and I was also doing a little bit of consultancy on the side. So I was doing analytics projects for capital budgeting and etc. in for other companies. So in a sense, like I was still entrepreneurial and doing things that weren't supposed to fit in the right. So for me, it's like the only thing that changed at some point was the fact that I got fed up a little bit with dealing with structure, with people that just didn't get it in a sense. And then I kind of that gave me the courage to just focus only and solely and entirely on my own business, on my own ideas. And then I figured out that I'm still dealing with people who don't get it. It's just that now I have more responsibility. So it didn't change that much, to be honest, in a sense. But what changed was that I was doing actually something that I really liked, and I was doing it mostly for myself. But
Okay.
as a
So
breaking
even
point, if I get your question, it wasn't like something that I realized. I woke up one morning and I said, okay, I'm gonna be an entrepreneur. You have an idea. Usually the way that things happen, I think, and I'm looking around because a lot of my friends are actually doing the same thing. They have companies, they're building things. And the way that they do it is, they have an idea, and that idea certainly starts working well, and they focus on it. And it's natural. It's just when it makes more sense to do this instead of something else. This is, I guess, the breaking point.
okay. Okay.
I think we need to stop
So
with idolizing entrepreneurs. And being an entrepreneur is not. I mean, I think you can work for anyone, anything, and you can still be an entrepreneur. It's not like you're a different type of animal. You just, you know.
okay. Let's continue with the question. So, what was the best advices that you ever received?
Kill Your Darlings was one of them. I think that at some point I had too many things, and I was also kind of a frontman for them. So at a point of time, I was dealing with around 7 companies, in which I had varying stakes, but in most of them, I was also on a board level responsible for their well-being. That meant that I had too many contexts, too many clients, too many problems, too many people, uh, and uh, and I was holding all, and I was trying to keep it together, and it was terrible, and I was suffering, and I didn't have time for myself or my friends. All I talked was about work. Uh, so my wife, which is probably the reason why I married her, she said, you have to kill some of your darlings, because if you don't,
Okay.
all of them are gonna suffer.
Okay.
And that's also the same with, even if you're running one company. I guess it's the same thing. Usually you do too many things and you focus on too many projects, etc. Again, ROI. Focus on the things that give you the biggest return. And again, return doesn't need to be money. It could be result. But when it comes to your business, focus on these things. Um, and then I guess the other thing is, as I said, when my mentor at that time said that you should really consider, uh, it's better to apologize than for ask for advice. This is where I also connected to previous experiences that I've had. Go do it, break some eggs, break some rules, not big ones, of course, but then if you cock up big enough, apologize. Go forward.
Okay. So, what about tools? What are the tools that you think help you a lot during your entrepreneurial journey?
Like digital tools or what? Like
Hammer, you know?
uh, hmm. Well, yeah, having internet was great.
Other
uh,
than that,
Yeah, I do a lot of digital work through Skype. I work. So the thing is, there's a lot of the things that I do with some formal decision modeling and systems modeling techniques. But this is just me. This is my process. So what I try to do is before I actually do something, I try to visualize it as best as I can, then communicate it to a number of other people and see if I get the right feedback. So I've done that on paper with a pen and paper, so I've wireframed, I've described my ideas, and I've done a lot of things like that. I did a lot of stuff on Mockflow. Mockflow is actually a pretty cool tool, and I think that the first
row.
Mockflow, yeah, it's something that you can use in order to make mockups. Uh, it's pretty cool because you can almost make a functional prototype of what you want to do. And you know, if you're doing a web page or an app, that's kind of useful. Another thing that I really use a lot is Glyphy. Glyphy is like for process mapping, for UMLs, you know, things like that. And the reason why this is helpful, again, for myself, I much rather visualize something, model it in an abstract world, you know, so model my thoughts into abstractions, go with these abstractions to people, have my head bashed, have them tell me that this is something stupid or this is something great, then, you know, visualize it some way further, and then maybe prototype it and do something else. Um, that's what I figured out that works well for me. And then I use Trello quite a bit. Now I'm migrated most to Asana, but Trello for task management, for team task management. And for myself, actually, this is another thing that I can think of right now. There is something called Nirvana, which is kind of like a task planning. Yeah, it's an app. So what it does is like it's based on the I forgot what its name was, but it's based on a psychology theory that says that you know if you want to get things done, you need to you know focus and prioritize. And part of the way that you focus and prioritize is also when you clean your brain. And usually a busy mind is not necessarily a productive and innovative mind. So you know, Nirvana operates as a dump for your thoughts in a sense. So what I do is basically before bedtime, or especially when I'm not able to fall asleep, when I have too many busy thoughts in my head and trying to imagine solutions and problems that I don't know if exist or need to exist, but I just go and dump all of that in Nirvana. And it's basically short name, description, you know, stuff like that. And then I dump it at something called the inbox, and then I prioritize that in the morning. So when I wake up, before I check my emails, I sit down and I say, okay, this is stupid, I'm going to delete it. This is something that I need to take an action upon maybe, you know, in 6 months from now, but now it's not them, you know, it's not. But what it helps you, all these thoughts. So a lot of time I think we spend energy in keeping ourselves, our being, our thoughts, our mind together. So at least for me, you know, I spend a lot of energy in like trying to say, okay, I should not forget this, and I don't want to forget this, and this is a good thought that I want to preserve somehow, and this is a good idea. Maybe I should call this person, and etc. And life is much easier when you dump this somewhere where you know it's stored, and then you know maybe prioritize it afterwards. See what can become a executable task, actionable item. What is just a thought, categorize, archive it. Things are better. You get a much better night of sleep, and also you know what to do the next day around.
Okay.
So that was quite helpful for me actually.
Okay, so these are the 4 tools that Victor recommends. So I think all of us should try to take a look and check those out, and it could be helpful.
Yeah, and one word of caution. Again, the digital world is great because it allows us to scale certain things, and it's more convenient, more user, more interactive, and user friendly. in some ways. But in the end, I could have done almost the same thing with a pen and paper. So you don't need to work with 20, 30, 50 different tools. You also, can do a lot of things with a pen and paper, and actually it's quite good as well. It's stimulating to work with your hands. But because the reason why I'm saying is actually a lot of people around me try to solve every single problem that they have with some app or tool or something like that. And apps are not pills, so they can't solve every problem. Not that pills can, but
it just like something supplement to what you want to do.
Yeah.
Maybe make it easier.
Yeah, it's to make things more convenient. But if you have the right process around things, so if you clean your head from ideas by noting them down, or you do something, if you have the right process around things, it's much more important. The tools are just there to help you out and scale your process. But if you're gonna just install 20 apps and not use them, then you're just creating another reason for yourself to be stressed about it.
Okay. Okay. So my second last question. Could you recommend one book for our audience?
Oof, well, one book I can recommend a lot of books, but Hitchhiker's Guide to Galaxy is always fantastic, and I would really recommend Atlas Shrugged, by the way. It's interesting. You don't need to fully buy into the philosophy to learn a lot of things from it, and also Fountainhead. I think for entrepreneurs, actually, Fountainhead and Atlas Shrugged are very strong books that have to be read. Anything else? It's as much as you read, the better off you are.
Yeah, 2 books. Yeah. Could you write down? I mean, for our audience. Okay.
Those are 2 books. Both of them are by Ayn Rand. I don't know why I think it's because her philosophy is very much. She's quite capitalistic, quite aggressive in certain ways. So she takes things to extreme, but she's extremely eloquent, and also I think she has some good points around entrepreneurialism and technologyism and creative people and creative minds.
Okay. So the last question for you, Victor. So imagine tomorrow morning you wake up in a brand new world, identical Earth, but you knew no one. You still have all the experiences that you have, knowledges that you currently have until now, and you have food, you have shelter of taken care of, and the only thing that you have is a laptop and $500. So what are you gonna do in the next 7 days?
Wow. Yeah, that's a big question to end on. Well, the first thing probably that I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go and grab a coffee or a beer and breakfast. I don't know. I mean, yeah, that's a really weird question. I'd probably try to do the same things that I do, but given the limitations, yeah, I mean, probably I'll go to a place where people gather and grab a beer with them and see where am I and what the environment around me is and figure out what next to do. It's you don't need to have it's difficult to have a template answer for a question that, or not a very good idea to have a template answer for a question that has so much uncertainty in it. You need to wake up. Yeah, coffee is good to wake up.
Yeah, of course. You wake up and then you eat all the stuff and then So
Maxime, he started with you wake up in a place. So
Victor said that
I assume I already wake up.
So he knew on no one, but he would try to find a place with people and then communicate with them and then maybe start something else.
Figure out where am I, what am I doing here?
Yeah. Okay, Victor, I think thank you so much for your time. So this is, and also for all the audience. And if you have more questions, please feel free to put it on the chat box. And if you have, so we will wait for like maybe 2 minutes. If you have, please write it down on the chat box. Else, we're going to end the web. So Victor, you have
Yeah, thanks
anything to
for
add?
setting
Like
this up.
a
And
like a last thing that you want to add?
yeah, first of all, as I said, thanks for setting this up. I hope that it was interesting, and I really hope that it was useful for somebody. And in general, my value is that, or my goal is that I create value as much as I can. So with a disclaimer that I might be extremely slow on answering, and I'm generally quite busy. If you have anything that would be a question that you have that I can help you with, go for it and send it over, and I hope that I can help you out.
Yeah. So please remember to connect with us. So if you want to connect with me in Twitter, please search for me this one, or you can search me on LinkedIn. Yeah, and also if you want to connect with Victor, you also can connect him with this Twitter account and this LinkedIn link if you want to connect with Victor. Yeah.
All right, everybody. Have a great weekend.
One last thing that I want to announce. And by the way, Victor is also the advisor of Entrepreneur Network. And please connect with us. Feel free to connect with us. So anyone that are EMA members and not yet in Entrepreneur Network, please join Entrepreneur Network with the link that on the screen. And also, if you want to join the group to get to know others members professionally, please also join our linking group. Yeah. So I think that's it. We have no questions, and thank you so much again, Victor. Very appreciate your time. And stay tuned for next webinar. Next webinar will be the entrepreneur will be hardware entrepreneur Raj, that based in UK. So anyone that interested, please stay tuned. Thank you so much, Victor, and bye bye everyone. Have a nice weekend.
Bye bye.